My belief with writing is you have to give a part of yourself to the story. You have to put in part of your heart. You have to put in your emotions to really make it resonate. A story without any heart is not a story worth telling.
Hey there, welcome to the Winx Forever podcast. I'm Lola, creator, host, and lifelong Winx fan. I'm taking a deep dive into the very cool universe of Winx Club. So whether you've been a Winx fan since 2004, like myself, or you vaguely remember it from your childhood, or even if you're being introduced to it for the first time, I want to say welcome. This is the Winx Forever podcast. Hello, fairy friends. Welcome back to the Winx Forever podcast. I am your host, Lola Valentine. We're going back to kind of, in season 2 of the podcast, I had a lot of my friends on the show and we talked about different aspects of the fandom. And I really want to integrate more topics like that into the following season. So I have invited my dear friend, Ella Anders, or you may know her on Instagram and Twitter, Authoress Winx. She is a writer, a SEO strategist, a beloved friend of the show, and also we first met back in the forum days. Ella was on the magazine, the English Forum magazine, with me and Cuba016. So Ella, welcome to the show.
Thanks. This is actually kind of weird if you stop and think about it, just because, I mean, obviously we're friends and I've been following the project since you started it. So it's kind of weird to have it come this way full circle.
Yeah, it really does feel like a full circle moment. I remember just gosh, us collaborating a lot in the forums with the articles we would write, and then all these years later getting to reconnect too has just been so fun and magical, and it's been wild. I'm so happy that one, that you're still in the fandom, you know, because writers are so important to fandoms, and we'll get into that a little later, but I'm just glad that you specifically are still contributing in ways to this fandom and to Winx Club. I mean, gosh, it's been almost 20 years. Can you even believe that? I
Every time
can't.
I stop and think about that, it just kind of slaps me upside the head like, where has my life gone? But it's so. Another thing I find so funny is I have a lot of friends still in the fandom who are out of the fandom or just very
Mm.
loosely in. But it's wild to me because over the years, I've met so many people all over the globe. Yet somehow you and we always kept that connection going. And
Yeah.
we ended up being the only marketers coming out of everything that we did.
Yeah.
Nobody else in the fandom that I've been able to keep track of and contact with ever took the route. And then ironically, we reconnected and found out, hey, we kind of walked similar journeys.
Yes, and I think that that is so wild as well, because I mean, we know so many people that hosted, I mean, you yourself, and then I for a minute, but not very long, hosted fan sites as well. And so that was like a huge thing that like kind of spurred on our digital content, you know, like savviness a little, and kind of pushed us in that way. You can kind of look back and see where everything that we've done, you know, for the fandom kind of has, like you said, like led us on this journey. And it is wild to me that not many other people that we knew from back then kind of ended up in the same path, you know.
Yeah, it's so wild because I was just thinking about the other day, it's like if I hadn't gotten involved with this franchise, if I hadn't walked into this fandom, I wouldn't be a marketer. At the same time, because of everything I've done in this fandom, I had kind of a leg up in understanding what to do. And thanks to the Nickbo era, I learned very early on what not to do when marketing.
God, isn't that right? Isn't that so true?
I can just
Oh my gosh.
imagine the people I work with, if they heard that, it would be a explain, this is a long story, I have to hear it. But I think anyone who was in the fandom, especially that was either on social media or on the forums or on anyone's site at that time, pretty much realized the situation the North America market was in for
Mhm.
Winx and how marketing was kind of treated as a joke, and we pretty much
Yeah.
had all of us communicatively as mostly teenagers in high school
Yeah.
stepping up and being marketers, being the promotion, and
Mhm.
doing what we would now say is influencing before it had
Yes.
that name.
Absolutely. It's wild to look back and remember all of the articles that we would write. We were doing episode recaps of the new episodes that came out each week, remember? Like
Oh,
we
yeah.
would do those for season 5, and I remember vividly writing some of those and thinking like, why is Winx Club not getting the same treatment from Nickelodeon? So it's so different when you yourself have a personal connection to an IP, right? It means so much in a different way to fans than it does to, it's not just dollar signs, right? Like for
Right.
corporate entities. So that's that's such a good point. Oh my goodness. You're listening to the Winx Forever podcast. Your blog, Winx for Life, was a blog that a lot of people relied on. I mean, we had, so many fan sites
Oh,
back in
yeah.
the day. It's wild to think about. And I know we keep saying like, oh, people back then, people in the fandom, like I want to iterate to our listeners. Like we were like 9, 10 when
We
the
were in the
show came out.
demographic. We were right in
Yeah.
that heart of what Rainbow wanted when
Hmm.
the four kids and the initial release of this came out. Actually, we're the same age, so we were at the same
Nice.
position
Yeah.
uh, when this came out. We were right in the heart
Mhm.
of the demographic. The only difference between Lola and myself was I didn't find out about Winx until the second season came around. So I kind of came in a little
Oh,
bit late. It was so crazy
okay.
though about the fan sites, and there's definitely a lot we could talk about with that. But
Yes.
yeah, uh, I think I know a few people, obviously, that I've talked to and had relationships,
Mhm.
and we've talked about the fandom, know this, but I didn't, and I wasn't introduced to Winx Club until the very start of season two. Um,
Wow.
so
So,
I watched season two as it was being aired, and
yeah.
then going back and watching season one at the same time. So
Wow.
I didn't have the same organic story flow that everybody else had. And I found out
Interesting.
and I fell into it. Like
Yeah.
nothing could have set up me finding out about Winx except the fact it was literally the day season two premiered on 4Kids. And I was
Wow.
in my bedroom. I just turned on the TV. The network channel that was hosting Winx at the
Mhm.
time, CW. Well, that was I had my last time I had my TV on was earlier in the week when I was watching Gilmore Girls, which
Of
aired on the
course.
same network. I just turned it on, and like a few minutes in, Winx starts playing, and it captivates me. And that was how I found
Wow.
Winx. And then I got curious about it. So again, if anybody knows me, none of this will shock you. Later the day, I go online to figure out what did I walk into. First
Right.
website I go to, and first place I go to learn about Winx was Michael's Winx Club.
Oh my God. That's incredible.
Literally every day following that, I would go onto Michael's site to see what was going on. And then, of course, as time went on, I ultimately got to know Michael and found him as a
Mhm.
friend. So it was like this weird paradox that obviously, I think I was 9 at the time,
Yeah.
2015, 2005. I fell into this show, seen it by chance, found Michael's site, and it kind of the domino effect spread out over the years to
Yeah.
kind of where we are today.
I don't think I ever realized that you started in 2005 with season 2. That's so wild. And you just turned it on and it was just
Yeah,
and there it
literally.
was.
It wasn't my TV wasn't on for maybe even 10 minutes and it just came on.
That's magical. That is so magical.
Tell me that was not predetermined.
Oh no, absolutely it was. It was fate. Truly. I love that. Wow. And so I guess I want to know, And this is something that I like to ask everyone who's been in the fandom as long as we have, what is it about Winx Club that has kept you engaged in the fandom for all of these years?
Well, obviously, growing up in the late 90s, early 2000s, we had a lot of content around heroes and heroics. So that wasn't a far cry. And growing up, I always leered towards those kind of stories. Obviously,
Yeah.
everybody knows I love Darkwing Duck. I love DuckTales. Those were huge series for me. Buzz Lightyear Star Command. I loved
Oh,
Mira in that.
TBT. Yes.
And obviously, Kim Possible and Totally Spies and all these shows started to circulate around this time. Well, I was in definitely a lane that liked the more either non necessarily gender coded content I'd
Mhm.
watch, or I'd watch, like Kim Possible. I like that, what was going on, just following the general trends.
Yeah.
Obviously, at this point in 2005, we had like Kim Possible was falling off, and a lot of the series and other things I had been watching, they were out of syndication, and, even
Mhm.
like reruns weren't running. So I was pretty much in this lane where I actually for the very first time in my life, and still to this day, I wasn't consuming any animated content. I was just
Oh.
mostly watching Gilmore's and just being content with my books.
Yeah.
Just like casually watching whatever was on Nick or Disney without any attachments. And then, of
Yeah.
course, Winx came in, and that kind of sparked my domino effect. And that's what got me both into magical girls and fantasy because before I never had the interest in either.
Wow.
Obviously, Winx Club came in, and then the English dubs of Tokyo Mew Mew, Mew Mew Power,
Mhm.
and Ojamajo Do Re Mi, Magical Do Re Mi.
Yes.
And that kind of started to
Ah.
feel the magical girl passion, which is something I know I'm very well known for. Um,
Mhm.
but I continued with Winx Club all throughout the Four Kids dub, even though
Wow.
there's a lot going on in my personal life and family life at that point, and I wasn't able to watch most of season 3 when it was broadcast. I had to do the very old fashioned thing where you would get up, you'd set a VHS, and you record it
Yes.
and watch it back. I still have those,
Absolutely.
Lola, I still have those VHSs.
I love that. I love that so much. How when was the last time like you watched them? Like or
It's
yeah.
been a while. I actually did get, not that long ago, a DVD player for VHS ability in it, and I just need to find time to hook it up and
Oh
see what
my
I can
God.
do with that.
Whenever we meet IRL, we need to crack those open and we need to go through them because I would die to rewatch like the actual like airing of those again. Like,
I know.
oh my
And
God.
most of the episodes are that I have recorded and I remember this are the last half of season 3, the climax episodes.
Ah! No. Oh my gosh.
Yes.
Ella, these are gold. These are literal lost media. Like, it's insane.
But obviously, Winx just resonated with me. It was something very different than what I had consumed.
Mhm.
Obviously, I'm also known to be a very big bookworm, and even as a kid, I was constantly reading, going through books all the time. It just resonated because it was a very different tone and approach than what we really had seen with any type of media at that point.
Mhm.
It wasn't necessarily that they were teenage girls living this teenage life. It appealed to me that, they were heroes that kind of inadvertently fell right into their role and just went
Yeah.
with it. But above all else, it was this amazing bond they had. They were so different.
Mhm.
And it didn't matter how much life threw their way, how badly somebody screwed up in the group, they always found a way to come together and work past anything. And
Absolutely.
that bond, you didn't see that really in media,
Yeah.
especially then you would have friends, but you just like have the best friend who would probably become a love interest or,
Mhm.
they'd have a falling out, but you didn't see these characters that were, I don't care what happens, I'm sticking by you till the end. And they
Yeah.
became what we call the trope of found family.
Mhm. Yeah. And it doesn't matter how different they are either, right? Like, and I think that that is what's beautiful too is for an IP that is so early and like so ahead of its time for it being 2004.
Mhm.
It really did, like you said, that found family, that it just kind of like group. I mean, I wouldn't say misfits because like half of them are like princesses, but like
Yeah.
it is that that nice comfort of yeah, we can all be vastly different, but we can also all like have like beautiful friendships because of that. And yeah, I think that's awesome. So would you say if you had found Winx Club any other way or through any other dub, would you have been as big of a fan?
Honestly, I think obviously, I grew up on the 4 Kids dub. I'm American,
Mhm.
and I wasn't able to really dive into the Riot dub until I got deep into the fandom in the late
Mhm.
2000s. But honestly, I think obviously there's a lot of good things about the 4 Kids dub. You and I have talked about it at extensive length, but I honestly think it wouldn't have mattered if it was the
Really?
4 Kids or the Rye
All right.
because those core themes are still there. Even
Yeah.
if, Stella uses a different way of phrasing things, or we have Musa for hip hop references, that's still Musa. That is
Yeah.
still that character's organic whole is the same. They are still the same person, even with all the language changes.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. That's so beautiful. If you're enjoying this episode of the Winx Forever podcast, be sure to follow the show on your preferred streaming platform so that you're notified when new episodes are released. Switching gears a little bit, so you found Winx Club by chance, and then kind of dove into this very, very much like Bloom. Like you found it by chance and you didn't know what you're getting yourself into, and then suddenly you find yourself immersed in this magical fairy world, right? So, what got you started writing fan fiction? Where did you write before? I know that you read a lot,
Yes.
but
Just yes.
all right,
Uh,
yeah.
I was the weird kid who really didn't fit in. I never honestly had any friends in my life, real friends, until I walked into this fandom. So I
Wow.
was used to having, imaginary friends, keeping myself company. I would always get lost in stories. And growing up, I feel like every American kid read it. The book, The Landry News.
Mm-hmm.
And I had that feel of I want to be a journalist, like where I go more, I want to write. But I was always writing. I had so many journals full of stories. It was always there. Just
Mm-hmm.
Winx became a vehicle and something to push me to write more
Yeah.
and to really hone in on what would become a craft.
So, like we mentioned, yeah, we met when over on the UK English forums,
Hmm.
on the official Winx Club website back in the day when they had the chat rooms, and we every month we did this this magazine that it was such a different time. It was when Rainbow actually like listened to fans
And
and
they
would
marketed things.
and they marketed things and they let us publish this fan made magazine made by like you said, teenagers that loved the show, that we just made it was a labor of love, truly, and we made it every month and they would publish it to their official website. It's insane to me now looking back at it, like wow, they really did that. Like they really let us do that.
I mean, let's be real. Everybody kind of knows the trope that the early 2000s and like going into the early 2010s was a bit of a weird time, but that definitely is outside the box. But yeah, looking back, I remember because I was in the fandom. I had opened Winx for Life
Mhm.
officially in May of 2010, but I'd been involved. I was, on Winx Fairies and all the other websites as well as
Yeah.
Michael's. So I knew what was going on. I read those and I'm like, they're really letting fans do this? And then some
Mhm.
time passed and I actually got contacted by Cuba, like, hey, do you want to write on this? I'm like, wait, what? And
Yes.
obviously it's like, okay, sure. And then, I got to meet you and him and so many other talented people, and
Mhm.
we made this thing that reached so many fans. We actually worked for Rainbow as teenagers. I mean,
Right.
if you think about it, that's like our first writing marketing credit.
Yes, honestly. And that's so crazy. It's it's crazy because it I recall it, like I recall doing it and thinking like it was a great, it was so much fun. We had a whole process of editing and revisions and things like that
It
before.
was a real working journalism, newspaper, magazine floor, what we did.
Yes.
We
It
had the
was
layout,
crazy.
we had, the planning meetings, we did
Mhm.
revisions, we did publications, we did everything you would do to launch any type of content.
Yeah, it was truly a special time. And like you said, those early years of like the internet were so, and I
It's
say
a
of the
fever dream
internet.
that that we wish we still could be in.
Yes. Like there were not really a lot of rules.
I know, it's like, if you think about how fandom was when we
Mhm.
started, either when, we started to watch or when we started to be proactive, and then you look how fandom has changed today. I mean, I remember the thing was to do back when we all had the websites. There was a
Mhm.
huge, for anybody who doesn't know, there was a huge, basically, network of Winx
Mhm.
fan sites, and everybody who spoke English knew each other. We were
Yeah.
friends, we talked, we credited each other with news. It was just one big happy group family. Everyone
Mhm.
had chat box on their website, IM text
Yes.
boxes, and everybody would get together like, okay, we're going on this person's site, and everybody would just stay up late, just
Ugh.
talking about anything and everything for hours. And that's what we did. Nobody
Yeah.
cared about who you were or anything. It
Mhm.
was, this is you, we accept you, and that's what the foundation of our fandom was built on. Is it doesn't matter anything outside of who you are. You're part of
Mhm.
this. You're going to be
Yeah.
accepted.
Ugh. And I think that that is something that is so special about us growing up in that time, in the same time that the internet was also growing up, like we got to learn and experience all this stuff as also the internet was learning. The Like you said, that foundation was so vital to what Winx Club is now. Kind of going back to the whole writing part of it. Um, do you remember the first Winx Club fan fiction that you ever wrote?
Yes. So I walked into doing fan fiction formally. I say formally here for the obvious reasons, as I've prefaced before, in 2019. This was a time where, if you were around, you remember it was insane. The fan fiction scene, everybody was writing. It was crazy. You could, if you were following authors and following stories, you were getting email alerts all the time. And one
Mm-hmm.
of the big trends at that time was the OC Make Your Own Club. That
Yep.
obviously that's still pertinent. It always will be. So one of mine was a story that was a call to action that a whole bunch of other writers who I hadn't even known, I hadn't made relationships with, sent in their OCs, and I did this story talking about them kind of going on their own journey.
Wow. Oh, I
And the crew text of it was involving Griselda as a key player in this story and her
Ooh.
backstory. It has been shelved. I did try and rewrite it once. I do want to bring it back, but I have a lot of
Yeah.
plans to do it. But it was my first foray into it, and it was just an amazing experience. I remember how you would post something, you'd automatically get so many reviews right off the bat.
Mhm.
You'd have people so excited. They'd be sharing your predictions. It was just honestly wholesome, and you
Mhm.
could feel the excitement, the passion everybody had with what they were putting out and what they were engaging with.
Yeah. Aw. And I feel like too, and we've talked about this a little bit, but do you feel like fan fiction has shifted a little for the Winx fandom specifically? Of like,
Yes.
do you see like kind of like what is that? What does that look like?
Obviously, we currently are at a limbo period for our fandom. It's
Mhm.
been a long time since we've had a lot of sustainable content built in. We've had Fate, which is kind
Mhm.
of its own track if you really think about it. And it's been a long time since we had Winx content. Over the time, a lot of the very prominent Winx writers and the people that you would always see in the game, they've grown up. They've, you
Mhm.
know, they've gone to college, they've gotten out of college, they're into their careers, their families, their relationships, and sometimes it just goes the side way. Um,
Yeah.
be it I just don't want to do this hobby anymore, or I'm just not interested in this topic. I think that had a lot to do with it was that attrition. And I also
Mhm.
think writing is starting to become a lot more of a dying art, even if you look around. I mean, yeah,
Yeah.
you have people who are writing or are still active, but you see it in other fandoms if you're just looking at the fan fiction sphere. And
Mhm.
obviously, writing isn't necessarily the most glamorous, appealing career today, especially in a modern
Mm.
digital media era like you and I can attest to.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, I hadn't really thought about that because I feel like back in the day, writing was all we had because we
I
were
know.
in forums, we were on these blogs, we were on these fan sites, and writing was everything. It was ingrained in the fabric of what made our fandom, our like the Winx fandom.
That's how we communicated.
It
We didn't
yeah.
we didn't have video wasn't as prevalent.
Mhm.
Yeah, YouTube was in its infancy. Most people just went to YouTube for people who actually uploaded the series illegally and
Yeah.
watched it there. Or they do like the video edits they would do. That's what the fandom went to YouTube for. That was
Mhm.
even before we did product reviews on the
Wow.
dolls that either had been released, and this was way before Jack Specific even had the
Mhm.
license. And that obviously was a huge boom to the
Oh,
fandom going with what season 4 brought in. Especially, I think season 4 is when our fandom was in the true. Obviously, we know that the first 3 seasons is the golden age of Winx. I think season
yes.
4 was the renaissance.
Ooh, that's a good way to put it because I've always kind of personally have roped in season 4, but then do you put magical adventure in that too, you know? But like I think that that's the best way to put it is that it was a renaissance. It was so new.
Abundant. You had
Mhm.
so much engagement. You had a lot of passion. We had
Mhm.
Rainbow Magic Land. We had all these events in Italy.
Ugh.
It was a huge thing. Yes, we can have conversations about if magical adventure was good, was it necessary? Those are conversations, of course,
Yeah.
but it fed into the Renaissance. It kept
Mhm.
a lot of brand engagement and it brought about a lot of things because that propelled us into really diving deep with like the music scene. And
Mhm.
we got all this different content and merchandise and comic stories that were really rich and
Ooh.
engaging.
Yeah, the comics. It's crazy to think that we've come so far from that Renaissance era of Winx. Yet here we have Rainbow republishing yet again the comics like that are written. You know, these are
Yeah.
stories. These are written stories. Yes, they have a graphic element to them, but I will ask you here, what is your personal favorite Winx Club fan fiction that either you've ever written or you've ever read? Or both. I would like both. I want to know what's your favorite that you've ever written, but then also what's your favorite that you've ever read?
My belief with writing is you have to give a part of yourself to the story. You have
Mm.
to put in part of your heart. You have to put in your emotions to really make it resonate. A story without any heart is not a story worth telling. I think
Ooh.
for every single piece of work I put out, even those cringe inducing pieces from my teenage years that I still have online, believe me, if you go to my fan fiction account, you will see a lot of those. I think I do treasure those because I put my feelings into that. And
Yeah.
I wanted those to resonate. So that's kind of like literally picking your favorite child.
Right.
So it's not as clear cut. Obviously, I'm working on a very special project right now that may or may not be involved with the 20th anniversary that I'm really hyped about that I'll be kicking off for NaNo, which is National Novel Writing Month that starts in November.
Yes.
I'm working on that, and everyone will get to see that later next year. I'll
Incredible.
be teasing about it as we progress because it's not just a story, but I'm also loving and playing around with my AU, stressing that very clearly to everyone. YA rewrite, which was inspired by the early Fate script leaks,
Yes.
which is
Oh my
titled Where
god.
Destiny Lies.
Mm-hmm.
As for reading, oh my god, I've been fortunate enough to make a lot of very close friends that are extremely gifted and talented writers. There's so many that I can name. My friend Kiku, for short,
All
she's
right.
incredible. I love the way she goes about things. Ember Fire, I love her work. Authoress in training, another really talented individual.
Nice.
Tabby Catherine, again, she's another really good friend. I love how she takes things in the creative direction. There's just honestly so many writers I've gotten to know on a
Yeah.
personal level or as just a fan. And honestly, I think every time I see something from them or I go back and I reread something they've written, you get those feelings and you can tell where their heart is and you can feel
Yeah.
it.
Oh, I love that. And I think too, I mean, creating is like just such a extension of self in and of itself, in and of, creating. It's how we interact with the world around us. It's how we make sense of our worlds is creating. And so I love that what you said, a story without heart is not a story worth telling. Like that's I it's so true. Like it's and
Mm.
I do love that like it's not that like you mentioned, it's not that you don't put out maybe some cringy stuff or maybe some stuff that's not quote unquote perfect, but it's authentic and it's you. What would you say, I guess, and that's the perfect segue, I think, to this question. What would you say to someone who might be looking to get into fan fiction writing or publishing their own fan fictions? What would you say to them to kind of encourage them to get started?
You have to just do it. You have to take that jump. I know it can be hard. I know how the internet can be, but you need to do it. Even
Mhm.
if you aren't sure of yourself, it could be the domino effect in your life.
Oh, so true. That is so true. Well, I love this conversation. I want to continue it even more, but we're going to take a short break. But before we take our break, I've got some rapid fire questions for you.
Oh, here we go. I've been waiting for this one.
All right, Ella, here we go. So who is your favorite Winx Club member?
Techna, but I love how I've been writing Bloom lately.
Ooh, all right. What's your favorite season?
I'm very complex between saying season 1 and season 4 because season 4 is such an important time for the fandom.
Yeah, yeah, truly. Favorite specialist or male warrior?
I gotta give this one to Helia.
Yes. Favorite movie?
Wait, this is a question? I think we all know
hmm
the answer to this.
I mean, the only one.
I mean, why are we questioning the only option? I mean, I will give you the second film has some amazing music, but this isn't a question.
Secret of Lost Kingdom, all the way. All the
A
way.
thousand percent.
And your favorite transformation?
I believe it's
Your least favorite transformation?
Cyrenix.
And then your favorite romantic relationship in the series?
I'm going to kill Lola on this. Spark shipping Bloom and Veltor.
Ooh!
It's good. It's
Wow!
good. I tell you, used to not like it, but then I started reading some of the shipping romance fics way back when. I'm like, Okay, I can get behind this. Now, if we're talking
Okay.
canon, I'm gonna give that to Stella and Brandon.
Oh yeah, the best couple. Your favorite villain of the series?
Valtor, he
Mm,
had the most personal, emotional stakes in the game and really messed with Bloom and the Winx, and he wasn't afraid to do anything to anyone in his way to get what he wanted.
yeah, he is a very well written villain. I will agree with that. So that wasn't so bad, right? I mean, everyone was always like, "Oh my god, the rapid fire questions," but you
Well,
did
I knew it was
great.
coming.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, we're going to take a short break, but when we come back, we're going to dive even deeper into our topic as we look at Winx Club fanfiction and the importance of fanfiction in fandoms. So don't go anywhere. Hey, fairy friends, Lola Valentine here. In case you missed it, the Winx Forever podcast launched our very own Discord community. Discord has been a great place to connect with so many wonderful Winxers from around the world to talk about our favorite fairies. I wanted to try and recreate the magic of the original Winx Club online English forums from the old winxclub.com website. So we've got forums where you can post your own topics and respond to others' posts in every Winx topic imaginable. Click the invite link in the description below to join the Winx Forever podcast Discord community. And remember, the magic's in you. Hello, friends. Welcome back to the Winx Forever podcast. We are here with Ella Anders, aka Authoress Wings, on Instagram and Twitter. And where do you publish your stories?
I am on fanfiction.net, which is just my name, and I'm also on Archive of Our Own. There I'm actually Ella Charmix.
Ooh, all right, cool. Yeah, I'll be sure to link all of Ella's platforms in the descriptions below. So please go check out her work. We're gonna be talking about or more about fan fiction, and I want to start with, I mean, if you're new here, if you just logged onto the internet today for the first time, fan fiction is exactly what it sounds like. It is a story crafted by a fan of something. It can be, you know, a popular or not so popular show that the fan is into. It could be, I mean, there's One Direction fan fiction. There's Jonas Brothers fan fiction that I hand up did write in in middle school,
Are
you
you
know.
serious?
Oh,
Ah,
absolutely. It died with my family computer because of the songs that I was downloading from LimeWire. Absolutely.
rest in peace.
R.I.P. Um so yeah, so there are fan fictions for so many things, and it really doesn't take a lot. All you have to, I mean, all fan fiction is a retelling or a different telling or an addition or whatever that a fan has to the thing that they are a fan of. So it's a very, I feel like out of all of the things in to be involved with in fandom, this has a very low barrier of entry, would you say?
Anyone can do it, and honestly, everyone should try it if they have the desire to.
Yeah, yeah. Do you think that fan fiction is important to fandoms?
I think it's not only important to fandoms, I think it's something that's important to everyone on personal and just emotional levels. Obviously, everybody emotes their emotions differently. Some people are really good at expressing themselves by drawing, some people use music, some of us use words.
Hmm.
Obviously, I think everybody can attest after the past few years and everything that we see going on in the news, there's a lot of strong emotions in us. We need ways to healthily release those, and writing can be that gateway. Sure, some of us don't want to be public facing or have a story they think they should tell. Sometimes it's
Mhm.
just writing in your notebook or scribbling notes down on your phone.
Yeah.
It's a way you can release everything you're built up.
Mhm.
Storytelling, I mean, life imitates art, art imitates life. You could be trying to get things off your chest, or you could have this daydream that's been gnawing at you for so long, you just need to get out
Yeah.
of you. There's so
Oh,
many ways to look at it.
I love that. I remember growing up, this is such a random what literally what you just said, just like unlocked a memory. I remember growing up and it being season two was airing, and growing up, when I would go to sleep at night to help me fall asleep, I would imagine new scenarios or scenarios in between the episode scenes that we got of that week's
Um,
episode, like to help me like fall asleep.
yes.
And so it was
Oh,
just
that's so
so much
sweet.
fun. Yeah. And so like I love that of, it doesn't have to be this well marketed, super polished, best launch,
Yeah,
of a story or whatever. It can literally just be an extension and expression of yourself and of your I love that, Ella. That's beautiful. I think that Winx Club fan fiction is for me significantly important to this fandom because not only the gaps in between
oh my
content that we
god.
get,
Mhm.
from the actual franchise, but also there's so much potential with the
Absolutely.
world of Winx Club. Winx Club gave us this beautifully set up sandbox.
I was just
And
gonna use that
what
metaphor, oh my god.
yes. And what we're able to do in the sandbox is just like, I mean, like the sky's the limit. Like we're only limited
Right,
by our imagination, you know?
absolutely. I mean, Winx is a fantasy series. I mean,
Mhm.
everybody, when you think about it, you can think of the fantasy series you like. What makes Winx so unique and attractive from a creative perspective is you have this very large sandbox where you don't
Yeah.
have things very concrete built. An
Mhm.
example of this is plugging another fandom I love is a series called Ascendance of a Bookworm, which
Oh,
is extremely well done with world building and character development. I encourage anyone to read it if they want to. It's definitely worth the investment in the book read. Um, but it is very structurally sound with the world building, the hierarchies, how things work. It's
yeah.
all very interconnected, which is gorgeous. It's a fantastic read. Love it. But
Mhm.
at the same time, if you look at Winx, we
Mm.
don't have those rules. The rules, the universe, how magic works, how
Yeah.
fairies are in their transformations, none of it is set up so solidly that you can't explain it or dive
Mhm.
into it from different angles, and that can still be as valid as anything you see. I mean,
Yes.
Winx has given us a lot. It has given
Mhm.
us this magical world. It's given us a lot on personal levels and a fandom level. But I think we can all agree it's not a well written show. I mean,
By
the
any
world
means.
building, the character development, it all is lacking. It's so easy to go in there and zone in on a specific attribute. Like, I want to talk about, you know, the headwinds between Flora and Helia when he
Mhm.
didn't recognize Flora as his girlfriend in season 5, and really just dig into that and really give it a good fleshed out story. It's so
Mhm.
easy.
Yeah.
Just so many occurrences like that. I mean, it could be a little more on the character development side, it could be diving deep into, okay, the story of the Great Dragon, the creation of the
Mm.
universe. It can be as deep or simplistic as you want it. It's such
Yeah.
a great sandbox with such little firm structure that you can mold it any way you want.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. And I think too, because like you're saying, because of the lack of structure, it does egg on that creativity and it does inspire us to dream up, well, yeah, how did the magical universe, get created, and how did, like fairies come into existence, and things like that. Like it's so beautiful because it it's all valid,
Mhm.
right? Like there's nothing that a fan can write that other people can, like point to and say, oh, well, actually, like, well, no, not actually, because the writers didn't give us anything about this. So,
Exactly, exactly. It kind obviously, you think about the time Winx Club came out, the early 2000s,
hmm
most storytelling in the terms, especially animation sphere, but you can definitely also lend it into live action. It was very episodic based.
yeah.
Not anything was built on each other. The serialization that we know today, that we see in so many works, and is
hmm
standard, wasn't then. The idea of
Yeah.
having a very structured story arc around one season wasn't the norm. Winx
hmm
broke that mold.
Yeah.
If you think about
Yeah.
it, no other Western, because obviously anime is kind of a completely different adjacent conversation to this,
Right.
no other series at that point in time said, we are doing 26 episodes, this is the arc, and this is how it's going to build on each other.
Yeah.
And it was ambitious. If especially when you look at the market, especially for
hmm
girl content, especially,
Yeah.
but they were doing something that there wasn't a rule book for.
hmm
Nobody did. Like, I don't think they sat down and did like a show Bible saying beat for beat,
Right.
at this point, this has to happen, this has to happen, this has to happen.
hmm
I don't think they did, but still they did it. But at the same time, the story, the original, probably Bloom's arc is how we could probably say it. The
hmm
first three seasons and the first film is Bloom's story. It's very cohesive. And then,
hmm
we move into the Renaissance, where season four is a little less structured because they weren't sure what the future was going to be hold, but they wanted a
Yeah.
future. And then we'll ignore Nick Bow. But because of how it's structured, they didn't always plan ahead the next move, and they end up
hmm
contradicting themselves, and that makes things less stable in the storytelling narrative aspect.
Which just opens it up even wider. So in a lot of ways, like Rainbow not having the foresight to kind of like dig a little deeper into some of these plots and character arcs and world building did the fandom a favor. Would you say
It's the
that
gift that
like
keeps on giving.
it really is? It's
I'm
so
sorry, Rainbow, you should have seen this coming, but congratulations, you have raised an entire crop of creators.
yes, right. And which is so I mean, because Genius Traffy is an incredibly creative
Oh,
person,
yeah,
to
absolutely.
create such a world. And so I just wonder like what that means to him, like personally, like
I would
to think
love
about
to
that.
ask him, what was the plan? Did you ever anticipate this to happen? I mean, honestly, I have so many questions for him, but it's just one of those things. And I don't think they had a regular group of writers working
Mm-mm.
even in the first three seasons. And that had a lot to do with it, especially if
Mhm.
somebody didn't have the foresight to write things down, what they
Right.
were thinking and planning. If there was no record of it and somebody took the torch, they may not even have known to even consider the
hmm
options.
One of the biggest things I back in the day I did have a couple of fan fictions. There was I I don't know how, but I wrote a musical for Winx
Oh
Club
my
using
god.
using
That is
different
so
like
early 2000s.
right. It was very musical. It was like a Riven and Musa story because I was a hardcore Riven and
Uh,
Musa girl back in the day.
really now?
Yeah, but before I grew up and was in relationships of my own and could recognize, oh, that's actually very toxic. I lived for the drama. 9-year-old me loved it. I reveled in it. It was great. um, so yeah, that I wrote Riven and Musa fan fiction. There was I wrote the actually my original story that I released last year.
Uh-huh.
Magic's High. That's a rewrite
Yes.
of a story that I started back in the forums.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I didn't
So
realize that.
yeah, so it's kind of full circle, and I think what's even funnier and more even more full circle for me is getting back into the Winx fandom all these years
Mhm.
later. I've always been around, but like having a more a bigger
Active,
presence, I guess.
proactive,
Yeah,
yeah.
proactive presence. I think that I think that I've mentioned this on the podcast before, but I do attribute finding Dawn's comic almost magical to like to me rediscovering like, oh, there are still so many creatives in this fandom creating, for
Yeah.
and creating stories, and the stories is
Mhm.
what got me. And so I really do attribute that. And so I think that because of people like you, like Dawn, like Stephanie Lilac, that is,
Yes,
does her
absolutely.
glow winks, like
Mhm.
and even feeling with Beyond Dimensions, like there's so many, and those are I mean those are also artists too. And so
Mhm.
like I mean they're double dipping and it's crazy, but like, you know, all of these people, I mean writers like Sweet Hazelnut too, who,
Yes.
writes for the Mexican side of the fandom,
Mhm.
like, or the Spanish speaking side. Like it's so wild, all of the
Absolutely.
storytellers that we have that bring people into the fold like myself. It's I think that it's so abundant and so necessary for
Right.
a franchise that has been around as long as Winx Club has. It's also really impressive.
I mean, Winx, we've gone through highs and lows.
Hmm.
We've had these periods where it's been feast or famine, but we
Yeah.
have this amazing, close knit, really, because we've had to be
Yeah.
fandom of creative people who, even when there's absolutely no content, we keep going at it. They keep creating and
Mhm.
pulling parts of themselves out and crafting it into art and putting it out there for the world. I mean, every fandom is creative
Mhm.
and they do their attributes, but we're a fandom that keeps being creative. We keep pushing ourselves, our
Mhm.
talents, our stories, and we push the brand to keep being relevant even 2 decades later.
Yeah, that's absolutely wild to me.
So the moral of the
It's
story, Rainbow, hire your fans.
hi, you're welcome. Yes, honestly. Well, that's actually a perfect segue because on the topic of hiring fans and engaging with fan content and fan stories like that,
Yes.
recently,
Here we
and
go.
recently, um, Winx Club hosted a fan fiction contest in Russia. Let's talk about companies engaging with fan fiction and hosting something like a fan fiction contest and the
Yes.
implications that that holds for not only the people that submit their original stories, but also for the companies.
Right. I think again, I need to preface something. Obviously, I realize a lot of people that are listening don't know me or haven't engaged with me. Um, I'm not saying this as, oh, I've accomplished this, look at me, clout, anything like that. I'm not that type of person. I keep to my
Not at all.
corner, and I stay in the background, stay in my lane. But I kind of feel like I need to kind of give a little justification and
That's fair.
understanding and clarity from where my position is because nobody else is talking about this. And, I want to also kind of cite my sources. In
Mhm.
addition to everything I've done in the fandom, I've also worked on another website called BSC Kids, which has covered kid centric content.
Mhm.
Through there, I've done a lot of different things, gotten to know people in various industries, and this is a conversation that has come up.
Mhm.
This is obviously not to discourage anybody from writing fan fiction. I've said it before, I'll say it again. If you want to write it, just go for it. Don't let anything hold you back, not
Yeah.
even your own fear. You just need to take that plunge. If it doesn't pan out, it's okay. You can keep
Mhm.
going. You don't have to stop for anyone, for anything. Just write to your heart's content. But
Mhm.
there's implications when you have a company or
Mm.
any professional step into this space. Fan
Yeah.
fiction is content created by fans,
For
usually
fans.
for
Yeah.
fans, exactly. With that, it's kind of its own niche. Unlike
Mm.
fan art, which you could do original characters, you could do scenes, sky's the limit. Art
Mm-hmm.
is basically capped by your own creativity.
Yeah.
You can do anything. Fan fiction's kind of a gray area,
Mm-hmm.
especially when it comes to addressing it in a professional sphere. Obviously, to take it as a granular perspective, I'm not sure if anybody knows this, but here's a great parallel for you.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure everybody has heard of Marissa Myers, the author of the Lunar Chronicle series.
Mm-hmm.
She started out writing Sailor Moon fan fiction before she went and pivoted into being a professional writer. When you make
Interesting.
that soiree from being a fan writer to a professional writer, you do have to leave the fan fiction world behind you
Mm-hmm.
because the inclination is possible legalities. If you go,
Yeah.
because I know this is a very universal experience for so many of us, if you go to a convention and you're going and you're meeting, that writer or that comic artist, any type of creative like that, and you go and you say, "Oh, I love your work," you're complimenting them, you're, letting them know how you feel. Great,
Mm-hmm.
fantastic, absolutely. But then you say, "I kind of feel like this character should do this and this and this." Right then and there, if they have anything like that pipelined, it has to go out the window.
Mm-hmm.
Unless it's like through legal approval or that level of channel, it has to go because it could go back and it can boomerang negatively on them.
Mm-hmm.
Because you could have somebody working on a project that may or may not have something eerily close to that.
Mm-hmm.
And they could go ahead, just go through the implications, go through the process to get it out. And then you could have a fan say, once it's out in the consumer, hey, I gave that idea. I'm responsible for that. Why am I
Mm-hmm.
not being credited? And
Yeah.
that could end up being, I hate to say it, a lawsuit or other really bad implications
Mm-hmm.
that can affect the individual and the companies involved negatively, not
Mm-hmm.
outside of just negative press. The creative, specifically responsible, could have their reputation in the industry ruined
Mm-hmm.
if people think certain ways, like, oh, this creative, they copied fans or copying people, then,
Mm-hmm.
that credit discredits their work, their creativity, and could lead them to be, I don't know if I can hire this person for this project with this
Interesting.
reputation. That could be a problem, or there could be lawsuits involved. There's a lot of legalities
Mm-hmm.
involved that you kind of have to walk that tightrope. I mean, obviously, it's a little more fair game if a creative, wraps up a project and, they're not going to touch it again, then they might
Mm-hmm.
go ahead and indulge in the creative field and everything that the fans have created without having
Mm-hmm.
that concern. But if they're working on something or there's that potential that they may go back to it, they can't just because
Yeah.
they have to keep themselves safe because if they don't, they lose their career and then they can't make more of that art you like.
Yeah. A lot of things wrapped into that, right? And it's really interesting seeing even Rainbow, a company that's been around for gosh, 25 plus years,
Mhm.
having kind of missteps in that direction, right? And it's
Mhm.
it's crazy too, even seeing, I mean, we all know what happened in season 8 with the stealing of someone's literal original character
Yes.
to be put into their show. And it's never been confirmed or denied by Rainbow that it was stolen, or if, but was, and this is just me being ignorant to this fact, but was has the artist come out and said, like, oh, that's, oh no, they contacted me, or oh no, they stole that, like, have they been vocal about that? Like, I can't remember.
I can't remember, but again, when you get to that point,
Mm,
if it's intentional or unintentional, because it can be unintentional. I
yeah.
mean, sometimes things are very clearly laid out and they can just be passingly similar.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of things that happen behind the scenes. Lawyers
Yeah.
can be involved. It can get messy. You could be signing NDAs. There's a
Mm-hmm.
whole lot of things that could go on depending on the severity and who you're dealing with. I mean,
Yeah.
it's one thing if you're dealing with just a writer who just has a publishing deal, that's one level, but if you're working with a big company like Rainbow, that's another completely because they
Yeah.
have the ability to be aggressive if they want to be. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
Disney would be or other big names. So it's one of those things where you're also kind of putting yourself in a pretty uncomfortable position that you didn't even intend to do.
Yeah, and I think that that's what a lot of creators might have, hesitations with, even diving into the fan fiction space, and even a fan art, even,
Yeah.
like being able to sell prints of their fan art and
Oh,
what
yeah.
have you. It's a huge gray area that, we just chalk it up to, we slap the fan label on it, but then what happens when like you and we this is our profession now.
Yeah.
Like we're professionals in our industry, and this is it's not just fan, not, I want to say fan fodder, but like for lack of a better term, like it's not, we don't have the fan label slapped on, our work now. Like
Right.
it's and if it wasn't for, and we've both mentioned this, if it wasn't for our time in this fandom, like would we be the professionals we are today? I don't
Yeah.
know, and so like what is preventing other creatives and stuff exploring their creativity through fandom like this without the fear of getting sued out the wazoo by these major,
Right.
like it is that fan protection,
Right.
but it's
And
it's definitely a responsibility on the company's side of things.
absolutely. And I mean, to go with that, when writing fan fiction, I was told pretty quickly you need to put disclaimers on your
Hmm.
work. That's why
Yeah.
whenever you read any of my stuff, I'm like, I don't own anything. It belongs to Rainbow.
Hmm.
It's fair use. Because then that also brings
Yes.
the question of what your country's copyright and fair
Yeah.
use laws are. Because again, I mean, kind of pivoting, you can look at a YouTuber. They could be making a video about Winx and they,
Hmm.
maybe use too many clips of the series and Rainbow can strike them down for copyright infringement. I mean, it's that gray area that it's like,
Hmm.
you want to do this, your heart's in it. There's nothing wrong with you doing it. It's
Right.
you have to mitigate the risk and
Hmm.
make sure you are doing your legal side of it to prevent anything coming. I mean, at the end of the day, Rainbow's not going to go after us
Right.
everyday fan creators. They're not. There's no reason to because we engage
Well,
with the fandom and they're curating content on their social feed now. They're not
hmm,
going to go after us unless there's a really good reason. But just because Rainbow doesn't mean one of their partners might be too happy
yeah.
or another company might not be. There's just too many unknowns,
Yeah.
especially when you're talking about private companies.
Hmm. So, and I want to clarify, we're not just like, saying a broad general, like, oh, any fan fiction. We're specifically in this instance talking about fan fiction that you personally submit to any company,
And that's the
if
thing.
yeah.
With a lot of like writing contests, when you enter them, I know there was one I seen earlier this year that part of the agreement to enter a contest for an original piece was you surrender the rights to it. You can't claim it as yours.
Yeah.
So if you enter it and you don't win, and you want to continue it and maybe do publication, you can't because you signed away those rights. So there's a
Yeah.
lot of implications on that side as well. I
Hmm.
mean, and you have to also look at the flip side of it. It's great, obviously, that Rainbow's acknowledging the fandom, they're engaging with the
Hmm.
things we make. I think it's wonderful. I think it's long overdue. And the last thing I'm going to do is tell somebody they shouldn't be cosplaying or making art or
Right.
writing. They shouldn't. That's a form of self expression, and
Hmm.
everyone should do it as they wish and how they feel comfortable. But at the same time, you have Rainbow, which is a big name, which is
Hmm.
known in the industry and it does have weight behind that name, you
Yeah.
have them doing a fan fiction contest sourcing fan content that they seem to be clearly intending to publish.
Mhm.
Obviously, we don't know the details of what the deal is, how, if there's compensation or what
Mhm.
the distribution is going to look like, but you're sourcing very clearly creative in a way that
Free
there's probably
creative.
profiting off it
Yeah.
of fans.
Mhm.
That might not be a look that sits well with other people in the industry, and
Mhm.
that could affect, not only their reputation, but partnerships. I mean, again, whenever businesses are looking to either work together, merge, acquire, you have to look at that stuff. And the legal aspect has to be like, is this okay? How are we going to deal with this? Are we comfortable in
Yeah.
this position? There's just so much behind the scenes, it would make your head spin.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And so I think the biggest takeaway from this part of our conversation is just be careful. Like read the fine print
Mhm.
of these types of contests and things. Always, as Ella said, put disclaimers on your fan fiction, on your original stories. If you don't own the rights to the original characters, like just cross your I's and dot your T's. That's the wrong way to say that, but if you're enjoying this episode of the Winx Forever podcast, be sure to follow the show on your preferred streaming platform so that you're notified when new episodes are released. Well, is there anything else regarding fan fiction that maybe we haven't touched on, or anything that you wanted to bring to the conversation that maybe I haven't brought up yet?
I mean, there's just so much you can talk about with fan
There's a
fiction
lot.
because it feeds in to our fan culture, it feeds
Mhm.
into fan creation, and just being creative and expressive. I think we've really just hammered home. I mean, Winx is this fantastical world we've all walked or fallen into, and it we can do so much here on a creative
Mhm.
field. I mean, we're limited by our own imaginations and our own insecurities for what we create. There's no
Do
sky's the limit in Winx because we have an entire universe to explore. And I
yeah.
wish Rainbow would realize what a treasure trove they have of this world and expand. And
Mhm.
honestly, although I don't agree with the way they're going about a fan fiction competition, I wish they would seriously talk and consider
Mhm.
tapping fandom talent to curate content, especially as we go into another decade of Winx Club. I would
Yeah.
love to see so many of the creative people I've gotten to meet here in this fandom be able to tell their Winx stories in a actual canon light. Again, I
Mhm.
feel like it's wasted potential. We are probably the most dedicated. We've
Oh.
gone through so much as a fandom with this series, and we're still here. I mean, we've gone
Mhm.
through the highs and the lows as far as you can go. We're
Yeah.
here. We have so many talented individuals who have created these amazing careers for ourselves because of what we did in Winx, because of the encounters we have.
Mhm.
And that says so much.
Yeah. It says a lot. And I think that, like you said, it says a lot about the world of Winx Club, but also it's just a huge testament to the type of people that this fandom attracts and
I
retains.
mean, fandoms, they come and go.
Mhm.
You can change, you can
Mhm.
evolve, but we've all grown with this property. We've grown
Yeah.
with each other. We are this weird global family that hasn't completely met yet. I
Yeah.
mean, you can't say that about a lot of fandoms.
Right. Ugh, I have chills thinking about it. It is truly magical, and it reminds me, did you ever have any of the Winx Club dolls?
Yes.
Did you have any of the season 1 dolls with the DVD that came with the DVD?
I didn't. They were out off the shelves by the time I got
Oh,
to
no.
Wings.
So, have you seen the DVD before? Like,
Yes,
what's
I
on the
have.
DVD? So,
Mhm.
um, talk about that was the first ever Winx Club DVD I owned, obviously, and, like, there's this monologue that
Mhm.
Farragonda gives in that DVD, and it talks about all the things that you can expect from your stay at Althea. And she says,
Oh.
during your stay here at Althea, we will open your eyes and awaken your spirits to magnificent wonders and glorious marvels. You will encounter beasts that thunder through the sky and amazing creatures from realms beyond your imagination. You will also encounter dark foes, conjurers, and evil sorcerers. The everyday and predictable will become the strange and astonishing. Under the guidance of our realm renowned faculty, you will learn transformation spells and potion alchemy. The mysteries of the world will open up to you and your powers will grow. Dreams that once seemed unreachable will be within your grasp. Opportunity and power are only limited by imagination as the world of magics becomes yours. And that to me, like that whole spiel, it feels like what Winx
It feels
Club
like magic.
it feels like magic. It feels like what fan fiction is to Winx Club and what Winx Club is to fan fiction. Like it it really like we are only limited by our imagination, and
Absolutely.
as we take ownership of magics, of the world of Winx
Yes.
Club.
I
And so,
think
and I just did all of that from memory.
that's impressive. I think the one big note to end on is 4 Kids had it right. Close your
Mm.
eyes, open your heart, believe in yourself. That's how it starts. That's how it started for all of us. And look where we are
Yeah.
today. I mean, you
Yes.
talk about magical Winx memories.
Hmm.
I think so many of our memories are just waiting for us in the
Yeah.
future.
Oh, that's beautiful, Ella. Speaking of magical memories, what a great segue.
Okay,
Please.
we've known each other for a long time, but this is like the first time we've had a full vocal conversation. Just to like
Yeah,
throw this out here, so this is just kind of freaking me out just a little bit, but at the same time, this kind of shows what the heart of our fandom is. You have
it really
two
is.
people who are so different, walking
Hmm.
similar paths, that become such close friends without
Hmm.
any uh, any chance of fate happening to this.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. I love it. I love it so much.
Honestly, it feels like so much of this, it was written in the stars.
Yeah, it really does. And it's so I can't get over just the yeah, like how everything had to work out in the right timing, for all of this to be orchestrated. And it's just like it's beautiful. It really is. And I'm so thankful for you. I'm so thankful that we've reconnected after all these years because of this fandom, and it's just been so great, and and I hope that it continues to be because it's truly magical. With that being said, as we mentioned earlier, so we were on the English Forum magazine together.
Mhm.
We wrote articles. We were in the trenches writing these articles with these different voice
We were
actors and
marketing
music
before we were
videos. We were
professional marketers.
literally we were. And so for the 20th anniversary of Winx Club, we decided
That's the nice way to say it. It was a little less graceful than that.
a little bit. We kind of fell into a fan project that we have started, and we're calling it the Magical Memories magazine. It's a fanzine by fans for fans, just like the original magazine was that we wrote on. The link is in the description below to be a part of the Magical Memories magazine. And that is a fan project that we are launching for the 20th anniversary of Winx Club. We're very, very excited about it. Well, I think, man, my heart is so full and my cheeks are so sore from smiling so much. So it must be that we've had a great conversation today. Ella, thank you so much for agreeing to be on today, to sharing your heart and your creativity with this fandom. It really means a lot to me, especially like after all of these years. Really, truly, thank you.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, where can our listeners find you and your content online?
You can find me at Instagram at Office as Wings, on Twitter, X as Ella Anders, and of course on fanfiction.net as Ella Anders, as well as Archive of Our Own as Ella Charmex.
Perfect. And I will link all of those platforms in the description below. Ella, thank you so much. Thanks so much for listening. If you enjoyed this episode of the Winx Forever podcast, be sure to follow on your preferred streaming platform so that you're notified when new episodes drop. The theme for the Winx Forever podcast is the song She Makes Magic by Big Wild.